Welcome to the Electrify Podcast. We got some great new news today, introducing a brand new host to this kind of remade podcast where we are taking what we do not only around North America, but around the world with the Electrify Podcast and making it real consumer friendly. So I'm really excited to introduce the new host today for Electrify Podcast moving forward, Jarod DeAnda. Jarod, thanks for being here.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. BJ, you and I go way back, man. I mean, our hair might be a lot grayer, but that's called equity, my friend, because we've been in the industry, from you at McGuire's when you ran the Dodge Drift team, shout out RIP Sean Carlson, Sam Hubinet, and what you've created here with Electrify Expo, having me be part of it and seeing it from a distance, and the chins, and I mean, all these great names that we've worked with over the years and have partied with both on track and off track. I think this is a great contribution for me to be there selfishly, because seeing the EV world, how the landscape is changing. EV isn't just about, nerding out on high voltage, on charging stations, but it's about mobility. It's about that electrification in more ways than one, getting electrified about the industry, what's going on from one wheels to Super 73s to kids to adults and all the vehicles that are evolving every gosh darn day, all the news that's coming out. But we're gonna have some fun with this, right? Because it's not just stocks and bonds and all that. I'm talking, we're gonna party, man. We're gonna have fun, electrify, right?
Well, I like to call these grades seasoned. I feel like I've seasoned over the years. It's funny, when I was a young punk turning around with all those car shows, you think you know it all. And the older you get, the more you realize the less you really know. And you learn from so many people. And that's certainly what's happened to me. But, the Electrify podcast has always been more of kind of this industry insider podcast. And that's been great. But what's been happening over the last couple of years while we've been doing this podcast is that EV adoption is spreading. And so consumers are looking for opportunities and options to learn more about EVs and more about the people and trends that are kind of driving it forward. So certainly we're going to be having great guests on the podcast with industry leaders and pioneers. Certainly that will continue. But we're going to have a lot of new guests on the podcast that you might either might not be familiar with or you might not be expecting. Everybody from motorsport legends to people who are driving kind of the culture and subcultures of EVs, to people who don't know a darn thing about EVs and are coming on the podcast to rap with you and to talk about all things cars, all things car culture, and getting their feedback and their take on what's happening in the electric vehicle world, right?
Yeah, and that's a great point. We don't want it to be intimidating, because sometimes when you step into the EV world, it's like, I don't know, man. I don't know. And I've driven a few different electric vehicles, from the Jaguar to Teslas, different models of that. I've experienced Super 73s, which they display at the expo, but this is just all encompassing. So yeah, I want to get some of my homies that have never driven one, and cars is the easy one, right? Because we have the Electrify show off, which is telling you that the aftermarket's there for the electrification world of automotive. But again, the kids' bikes, the kid things, kids of all ages, including us being, I'll just put it out there, be 45, here in 2023. But as you say, you never know it all. So we really want to be all inclusive and just be like, yo, let's have some fun with this
for sure,
and really make it more digestible to somebody that's never experienced electrification. Because I mean, the tour in itself is just, I saw some homies, one of my homies, Sal Barbier, who's an absolute skateboarding legend, did a collab with Off-White, and I'm working on him with some projects. He posted up in front of that the F100, that EV vehicle. I was like, were you there? He's like, yeah, dude, I go every year. I was like, I had no idea, and like John Ward at Icon, what he's doing with electrification and all these great people. And Von Gittin Jr., man, look at that Mach-E 1400, man. I mean, and what they did with that, I'm really stoked, because when that car came out, here's a homie who I've officiated his wedding, seen Formula Drift grow from 2004 to now. Von Gittin Jr. is a modern day Carroll Shelby. So he's top of the list who I want to get on here and talk about electrification and maybe get a little secrets, of like what Ford's going on. Because here's Ford saying, customize our first ever, here's the largest, oldest automotive manufacturer in North America. And they say, hey, Von Gittin Jr., you're our guy to customize our flagship vehicle and our introduction into electrification. And he's a great friend of ours. How cool is that? So he is on the short list of somebody I really want to talk to. And and learn about that
No,
process and where we're going.
We're in for a treat because for those, and I'm going to spend a little bit of time here making sure that our audience gets to know Jarod. But you look, Jarod's connected all over the world and all over the board when it comes to cars and lifestyle and culture. And so one thing I'm really excited about the direction of the podcast is that we're going to really be diving into some new voices and some new culture, some new trends that are happening in the space. And I think that's going to be really enlightening for people who not only have been in the industry for a long time, but people who are just getting into the industry and are just getting into EVs. So, and that's, and, you know, Jarod and I come from an automotive background. And what I've seen personally producing the Electrify Expo over the past few years is that it started out as people coming to the Expo who were really like early tech adopters and people who were really adamant and focused on reducing their carbon footprint. And that's still the case. There's still a good slice of those attendees who have come to our expo, but it's flip-flopped. Like the majority of people who come to expo now are mainstream Americans who have heard a lot about the buzz around electric vehicles, but don't really understand it and don't get it. The only thing they know about EVs is what they've heard 3 or 4 years ago when EVs only had 100 and 150 miles of range, and they took 3, 4, or 5 days to charge. And there was no EV infrastructure anywhere. And so now they're coming to the expo and they're learning, oh gosh, this car has 400 miles of range. It can fast charge in 20 minutes up to 80%. And there's an EV charging station right down the street from me. Let's go. Let's look into this. Let's dive into this. So I think that, you know, Jarod, you're going to have a really interesting perspective because you're not like this EV guru, and you're not supposed to be. You're supposed to be somebody who is helping people who have the same questions and maybe even skepticism about EVs that you do. And then you're getting people on the line and on this podcast, and you're walking them through kind of this journey of discovering electric vehicles. And that's exactly what Expo does.
That's what we did. This is when you were like, Jarod, I got a proposition for you. I'm on the plane. I said, all right, dude, I got a moment. What's up? He's like, I know you're busy, but I got this idea. And I know we could have some fun with it because, again, BJ and I go way back, and we'll cut into that of my equity and your equity and why this works. I want to get my boy Killer Mike, you know, run the jewels. He's a big, you know, hot rod guy. He loves kind of muscle cars, but he likes it all. I want to throw him in an EV and see what's going on there. And again, it is just about that rising tide lifts all ships. You know, there are other podcasts about electrification. There's some other ones and all these things, but I really want people to come here, and it's just a beautiful extension of the physical Electrify Expo. And now you could just get this nice little digestible nuggets that you're like, oh, that's thought provoking. I never thought of that. And I want to get some secrets too, because we have some special guests. First episode, I'm not even going to say it, but I'm excited about it because I've seen this company grow and what their perspective is on what's going on. And I was there for the launch of the Livewire, which was launched as Harley Davidson Livewire. Got to see, I shoot videos and host stuff for Harley, and seeing that kind of shift gears. And they just said, no, it's not Harley Davidson Livewire. It's just Livewire. Why is that? What's going to happen there? You know? And then so many of my homies have Rivians and they love them. Then they were like Tacoma or Tundra drivers. They had a Tesla for a little bit, but now Rivian has stepped up with either the SUV or the truck. And those things are so stinking cool. And these are really well-to-do people. My buddy Shane Nickerson, he's a producer of Ridiculousness. So he's partners with Rob Dyrdek. He drives a Rivian. He's like, dude, I love this thing. He's like, honestly, like, I love 4Runners. I'd probably just get a 4Runner if I didn't have this, but you can't deny the accessibility, the uniqueness of it, all those things. So it's
the acceleration. I mean, we're car guys. So, you know, it's funny, like, and I'll just bring this up right off the top. We just finished our event in San Francisco, and we introduced this new area at Electrify Expo called the Thrill Zone. So you got to remember, like, this is only our 3rd year. We've only been doing this for 2 years. And we introduced the Thrill Zone. What happens in the Thrill Zone? Well, we thrill the heck out of people. That's what we do in the Thrill Zone. And so Ford brought their 1,400 horsepower Mach-E, which is Vaughn's car, one of Vaughn's cars. And Colette Davis was driving it. And so she's coming out, and Ford's putting people on the right side seat of this 1,400 horsepower Mach-E. And I mean, it's just an amazing exhibition of speed and acceleration. I mean, this is all, sub 3 seconds, 0 to 60 stuff. Like, people have never experienced this type of acceleration normally. And so, we're doing drifting demonstrations, and we're burning the tires down, and people are looking at Expo and like, wait a second, like the minds are exploding because
It's not a trade show, man.
never.
It's not a trade show. It's a fun
Well,
show. It's Electrify.
it's not trade show, and people come to EVs now for all sorts of reasons. So we're really a celebration of all things electric. So you're going to see exhibitions of speed, you're going to see stunt driving, you're going to see high speed e-bike demos, you're going to have traditional bike demos, skateboard, scooter, water, you're going to have electric semis, you're going to have obviously all the auto manufacturers, you're going to have music, you're going to have sneakers, you're going to have the automotive aftermarket, you're going to have car culture. Like, this is a celebration of everything that's happening in the scene. And really, there's no better person, I think, than you and your voice and what you've seen happen over the years of the automotive industry, and how trends, car culture trends especially, how they grow and how they blow up. And that's what we're seeing right now with car culture, specifically with EVs. It's like, I felt like outside of FD, because Formula D is its own animal, its own beast, its own success story. Huge props and respect to the guys that started FD and what they've made of it. Outside of FD in car culture, and from the era that we started in, which was late 90s, mid 90s, late 90s of what was happening in the scene then, to what's been going on since, like it hasn't been very hot. And what we're seeing now with Expo is we launched this new iteration inside Expo called Electrify Show Off. And the whole idea behind Show Off is to celebrate this subculture of car customization and bike customization that's happening that no one's seeing. It's kind of in the trenches, it's on the streets, but there's a whole aftermarket that's supporting it. So, you're starting to see all of these customized EVs, these customized bikes, scooters, skateboards popping up, and people are entering their vehicles and their bikes like to win awards like this, right? Like, we're here to support it and blow it up. And I think that you've kind of seen from the import scene days too, how trends evolve and develop. Like, what are you seeing right now, and relating that back to what we grew up with? Like, how are you seeing EV car culture and car culture in general, and how EVs are kind of integrating into all this?
All right off the bat, I mean, I announced Nitrocross. Nitrocross is the pinnacle car is the FC1X, 1,000 horsepower all-wheel drive rallycross vehicle, purpose built for rallycross. Travis Pastrana, you're getting Connor Martell out there, you're getting Europeans, and it's on its second season. After
this is a race series, right?
It's a race series. So Nitrocross is part of the Nitro Circus family. So Thrill One, so Street League Skateboarding, Nitro Circus, but we're talking specifically about Nitrocross. So Rallycross, if you don't know what it is, imagine Supercross, but with cars. So it's four-wheel Supercross. Previous years, we had, basically the supercars, which were, your Subarus, your Volkswagens, your Hyundais, your Euros, you get kind of unique manufacturers. Now they've made the shift and said, let's go EV. So they built this purpose-built FC1X. People scratching their head. I don't know. This is malarkey. ICE, right? ICE is the acronym, internal combustion engine. No replacement for displacement. Come on. I mean, you worked for Dodge and Mopar, and that's they were some of the most progressive vehicle builders, from something as silly as even a PT Cruiser. I'm joking. Dodge Viper. But you guys were aggressive. So here's automotive manufacturers, and I think the FC1X is a great progression in motorsports. I mean, there was that one electric drift car that Travis Reeder drove, that Camaro, had a short-lived span. There's drift electric cars. I've rode in an R32 at Goodwood Festival Speed that was EV. There's a lot of technology, and as it progresses, we want to be there. So as far as the culture goes, there's so much overlap. As you said, you talk about the show off. Shout out, Miyoshi, the old import show off. So I love kind of this resurgence, right? Everything old is new again. I mean, my son, he turned 17. He's out there announcing. He was gonna announce at Electrify Expo actually for Ford and the activation. Just couldn't do it for whatever reason. I won't get into that. But my son's going to events and working for Rockstar and doing Hot Wheels events. So the overlap of sneakers, shoes, fashion, the vehicles are the canvas. Your body is obviously canvas. That's why I cover mine in tattoos. And the overlap is there, man. And I think it's really cool. My buddy Luke Westman, he's a famed tattoo artist. He's been on Ink Masters and Miami Ink, and he just did a collab with Topps, the trading card company. He did a thing with Otani. He just got a Rivian, his first kind of going into the EV world, and he's loving it. So we golf a lot, and we're fully tattooed at the country club. So I think the juxtaposition is happening, and just seeing what's going on, and I'm here for it, man. And TMR, Toy Machine Racing, that's back in the day when we met. First ever put somebody awing over a Turbo Integra. This is back in 1998. So
shout out to Rodney Wills. Yeah.
Shout out to Rodney Wills, right? And these are the things that we can cut into, the history, the equity, what's going on. And like I said, the Electrify is not just the vehicles and the mobility, but I think it's the energy that BJ you've created, and I've seen it, slowly ramp up, heard about it. I know, and I'll just, the elephant in the room, like I said, there are other podcasts, there are other events that happen, and Holly was doing they are doing their Electrify thing. I think rising tide lifts all ships. You can have different car shows, you can have different things. I think the hat tip is to everybody embracing it. It's inevitable, right? Another pun intended there. I think this.
No, it's absolutely.
We live in a great time.
Yeah, we live in a good time. There's some great voices out there, and some great opportunities for people to learn more about EVs for sure. But what do you think is the general consensus from auto enthusiasts towards EVs? Because that's who you and I are, right? And especially me, I am an auto enthusiast, so I know what my take was on EVs for a very long time. So what's the general consensus, do you think, of the automotive enthusiast?
I liked what you said. Some people are going EV for the environment. Some people are going for their pocketbook, right? So you don't have to, I'm in California. I know you moved out to Texas, and everybody's got their reasons why they move, what's going on. I moved back to California because I missed taxes and traffic from Arizona. So we missed it. So we're back in it.
Good luck. Welcome
yeah,
back.
Exactly. Well, yeah, won't touch that one. But overall, I think the culture is those that are scared, don't be scared. It's hey, boomer, just relax and listen. It's gonna happen with or without you. And I think that education is key, and that's why we're doing this, making it more digestible, a different voice, a different note. So it is scary.
I think the general consensus from enthusiasts is I'm never getting in one. I think the general consensus from enthusiasts is hey, this is being pushed down my throat. I think the general consensus from automotive enthusiasts is it won't go as fast, and it won't be as cool. And I see it out there. We all have friends and boys who are still doing their car show thing, and I'll see a reel, or I'll see an Instagram, and it'll be me circa 2016, right? When I felt hey, if I couldn't hear the rumble of a V8 or the sing of an inline-4 turbo, there's no way you're getting me behind the wheel of that car. There is no way. That car lacks a soul if I can't hear it or feel it. And then I had my light switch moment in 2016 in a Tesla Model S. And I didn't buy that car, but that was my light switch moment where I was boom, things are not as they seem. And this car is wicked fast. And there are opportunities to make this car go faster and look cooler. I need to look into this more. And I think the best opportunity and the best way for an automotive enthusiast to kind of get it and have their light switch moment is to have an experience with one, or to see them done up, or see them customized, to see them slammed on 22s, bagged on 22s, and see them do sub 0 to 63 second times. So I think we got a long way to go with automotive enthusiasts. I really do. And I think that there's a misconception and a skepticism that EVs that is very real, and we need to acknowledge it. But to your point, I think that it is coming, whether you like it or not. And so right now, my biggest challenge, and I guess my biggest focus would be for the automotive aftermarket to really begin embracing this change, and to start tooling up for the types of car customization accessories and performance products that are needed in the scene. I mean, the whole audio scene is dead in EVs because from what I understand, EVs don't run on 12-volt systems. And so any 12-volt system that an audio manufacturer might make for a traditional, audio manufacturer might make for an auto manufacturer won't work. So, the audio companies need to get tooled up. The wheel companies need to get tooled up. Like, it's not just Tesla anymore. It's Ford, it's Kia, it's Porsche, it's Toyota, it's BMW, it's Lexus, it's Volvo and Polestar. I mean, there's so many EVs out there that there are options, and there are people who want to customize their cars, but just don't have options. So two things are going to happen. One is the legacy automotive manufacturers or automotive aftermarket manufacturers are just going to get their lunch taken from them, because the startup companies, the aggressive pioneers, the kids that are going to come in and get tooled up are going to just start coming and take market share, because it's Wild West right now.
Yeah, and you talk about the aftermarket T Sport line. I know my man John back in the day. He saw that, and I'm seeing. What did I see the other day? Yeah. Magback, this cell phone company, they made wheel protectors. They they have no business. It's a cell phone case company. They made Tesla wheel protectors. So the aftermarket's crazy. Excited. I mean, if you haven't seen it, Pikes Peak Hill Climb, just went down a couple weeks ago, and shout out to Leah Block. Definitely not. That was an ICE engine, the Porsche, running her dad, Ken Blocks. And look at Lucy. She ran the electric Sierra car up Pikes Peak, Sierra. Right? Lucy Block. That was awesome. But Randy Popes and the unplugged performance Tesla breaking the record, the EV, thing's bonkers. So, want to talk to Ben at Unplugged. And like you said, the aftermarket's there. How do you hack the planet? Well, how do you hack the planet is you hire the hackers, right? That's how you create a better system, is you hire the hackers to create the better infrastructure of what we're going to see. Back to Vaughn, I remember before we moved back out of California, pre-COVID, I went out to the Ford Proving Grounds, and it was cool because Vaughn had his Mach-E 1400 super secret project. We shot a video, and Ken brought out Unicorn, which is the all-wheel drive Ford Mustang that created a lot of notoriety, and that's RTR built too. So Vaughn built the Unicorn for Ken. Vaughn's never driven the Unicorn, so he let him drive the all-wheel drive, gnarly Ford Mustang that he built for him. And Ken got to drive the Mach-E 1400 out at the Ford Proving Ground. So I was there when they're like, what? Like, that was it, it's Neil Armstrong touched on the moon in my eyes.
No, what was that like? What was that like? So you saw Ken get into that electric car for the first time? Yeah. Well, what was his take? Because I'm sure, I don't know if he was like an all-in electric guy, was he?
Yeah, no, I mean, he was totally into it. He was like, dude, this thing hits hard, so, the green light's on, you're good to go. Red, you're dead. Don't touch it if it's red. But, he got in it. He showed, Vaughn showed him how to drive it, ride shotgun, and he let him go rip. So I think, our RIP Ken Block, what an absolute legend, gone way too soon, but much love to the Block family. Leah Block just got done in Sardinia racing Extreme E. My co-host of Nitro Cross, he announces Extreme E. You're looking at that progression, what's going on there.
Well, explain a little bit more about what Extreme E is.
Yeah, Extreme E is a purpose-built off-road international series to raise awareness about electrification. I think there's other things going on there as far as alternative fuel as well, but it's a two-man team. Like Carl Cox, the famous DJ, owns a team. McLaren Tanner Faust is out there racing, and they do one male and one female driver in each vehicle, which is really cool. And
so it's a paired up team,
racing.
one male, one female paired up team, and we have some huge race teams, like with a lot of pedigree, who are fielding cars in that series, right? I mean, is Andretti still in that?
It's a spec class. Yeah, Andretti's still in it. It's a spec class. I don't know how many teams there are exactly, but RJ Anderson, Tanner Faust. Gosh, who are some of the other names?
We just had Tanner on the podcast.
Yeah, and Tanner's been at the front of electrification as well, and what's going on, and the Audi that what's the e-tron that Ken had? It's super. I mean, I love it. And again, it seems like, I'm in California, so obviously a big automotive culture. Going down the 91 freeway, you're stuck in that, break to, bumper to bumper traffic. It seems like there's a new EV car going. What is that? Like it's just it's something's coming out. We live in limited
Yeah.
edition culture. Back to your point of, I saw again Neil Chin giving out the best sneaker award at Electrify show off, which I love that because your shoes on your car and your shoes literally on your feet.
That's right.
But yeah, so I think this is happening. It's really cool. We're talking primarily about cars, but I think the different podcasts that I'll be able to have and different guests that I'll have on will dictate the different audience, and maybe we're the gateway. We're the gateway into them being more comfortable, because I'm on this journey, and as they say, KISS, keep it simple, stupid. You'll never know it all. I always imagine that Harry Potter library with all those books. There's no way you could read all those books, but you can get a little nugget from each and everybody. And that's why I'm here. So thanks again for this opportunity, man.
Yeah, no, I'm excited about what you're going to bring to the podcast, the guests that you're going to have on. I think the beauty about where we're going with this is that these guests are going to be talking about EVs and electrification in a way that a lot of the general American consumers are going to talk about it. They're going to have the same sort of questions, and you guys are going to kind of work through what those answers are together. And I think that's going to be extremely helpful and informative for the audience that tunes into this podcast. So I know you're going to have some CEOs and some industry leaders, but it sounds like you're going to have musicians and athletes and all types of different influencers on the podcast. Can you tell us anything about anybody that you have on your mind that you think you're going to be bringing in that we should look forward to?
Yeah, Vaughn Gittin Jr. again, he's top of the list. I know you said Tanner was already on. I just think of just low hanging fruit. Like I said, love to have Killer Mike on here. You and I spitballed back and forth. Super 73 is a company that's doing some really cool stuff, and I think with their product, they've refined it really well. It's not just this Syrian, it's more of a beach cruiser bike if you haven't seen them, and their marketing is really smart. How they're selling the product isn't just a bike. It's more of a community. And that, I think that's again, going back to the word of inclusivity of, hey, because it's, I'll just say it, it's kind of like legalization of marijuana. In some areas it's legal, some it's not. Electrification and bikes being on roads and paths, the legality still TBD, because they don't even know what they're looking at from the Syrian bikes that are amazing, capable bikes. Then you have Cake, which are super gnarly. Then you have Super 73. You have knockoff, white label, inexpensive bikes that are, let's be honest, they're kind of scary. Like the fragility of the structure. Yeah. So good, better, best. We want to cut into that and that experience. So this is buyer beware, but also there's education here. So I as fun as it is to see the Tesla do the dancing with the doors and all that stuff, it is cool. And you want to have that buying experience. And Tesla's, they're always the kind of top of the list as far as cars go, but look at, the standardization of the plugins now that adds to the accessibility of vehicles. That's a huge move for
what did you
automotive
think about
manufacturers.
that, Jarod? Like,
that's huge.
As someone who's kind of like outside of it, like if you're a car guy and now you're hearing that Ford and GM and all these other legacy auto manufacturers are now going to adopt the North American charging standard, that they had to do some sort of deal with Tesla, literally a competitor to their business and to their livelihood. Like, what did you think about this?
Is it a monopoly? I mean, does Elon have all the power? Does he get to go on Joe Rogan and smoke weed and do his thing? Like, I mean, it's a huge flex. It's a huge dunk for Elon and Tesla as a company. Is it a monopoly? I don't think so. I think we take for granted that CDs back in the day is a Sony product. Like, they created CDs, right? So everybody invested into that. Like, so like, and there's certain technology that just got embraced, like Kleenex, right? It's just standard issue. So it's facial tissue, so you get standardized in it. And when it's standardized, I think everybody wins, because I'll admit, like my wife got a new car. She ended up getting a BMW X7, and people were asking about electrification. And, they have that new, budget wise, that new M is sick. It's expensive. I'm just going to call it like it is. It's not in our budget. And the charging situation, if you're not going Tesla right now, it's pretty difficult. And I've had this conversation with Matt Farah, excuse me. And him and Zach do a great job of talking about the accessibility. You know, they drove the Lightning up to Pikes Peak last year. They made some breakfast sandwiches out of the frunk, and they talked about he was stranded in the middle of Nevada one time with his Porsche, the electric Porsche. So these are things we're going to talk about. And again, it's not just cars. Yeah. I keep really want to reiterating that. I'm excited to have, you know, somebody like Cole Seeley, who raced Supercross. He's messed with electric bikes.
Oh, right on.
Yeah. Again, Killer Mike.
Oh, there's so much cool
artist,
stuff, Jarod,
Dr. Wu, who's a tattoo artist, and he's doing stuff with Livewire. You know, yeah.
The electric dirt bike scene. Oh man, we're getting more and more manufacturers at Expo with electric dirt bikes. It's incredible. I love the dirt. I've never been a good moto guy. I've always been more of a good four-wheel guy. They say with age comes a cage, but I've always been more of a four-wheel guy. But the bikes, in fact, our VP of operations, Jeff Nordstrom, is an old pro motocross guy. And so he's looking at all these electric dirt bikes come in, you know, not just the stuff we're seeing over in Europe with, I think it's Stark, but the stuff that's happening here is just really cool. And then, you know, the tier ones have been a little behind with the electric dirt bikes outside of KTM. But we're seeing here later in the year, and I know early next year, we're going to start to see, you know, Kawasaki and the others come in with some big, pretty great products. So that's a really fun industry that I'm really excited about watching. But I am interested in you getting Vaughn on for sure. You know, Vaughn and I have a history. I don't. You
guys fought?
Knows who?
Did you?
No,
did
we
you
not
fight?
But we didn't.
You have a
fight,
beef?
But we like no beef. But it's funny. So when I was running the Dodge program for drifting and Formula D, it was always like, especially in the beginning, it was always our Viper driven by the crazy Swede Samuel Hubinette versus in the final Von Gittin Jr. And at that time, I think he still had it was the Mustang. What did he have before the Mustang? I don't even know.
Well,
he had an
S13. His first year when he competed in 2004, he has S13, the Falcon tire.
So it was
blue
always.
silver,
Yeah, it was, but it was after the S13. It was the Mustang and the Viper, and so his primary sponsor at the time was Falcon Tire, and so it was always that blue and green livery that we would see, and I remember I would always see Nick. You know Nick from Falcon Tire. Shout out to Nick.
Yeah, Fusekis. Yep.
Yeah, Fusekis. Yeah. Yep. So you know, like when you're running a drift team and the other guy on the other side is, you know, your opponent, like you want to win, right? So that's about all I know about Vaughn, is that we would always go back and forth in the finals. But I have a huge respect for him and what he's done, not only with Formula D over the years, but how he's built his business and what he's doing with electrification. So it's really amazing to see his whole program develop, his business develop. He's a great guy. He'll be an awesome dude to have on the show and to wrap with you. I know you guys go way back.
Yeah, and he's, like I said, yeah, he's top of the list. He's going to be one of the first, just because it'll make it easier, this transition, and people get to know myself. Again, for those that don't know, I'll toot my own horn here. Just, you know, grew up street racing in San Diego. They made the movie Fast and Furious about what we were doing. I worked at Group 5 Motorsports. We were the first importer of June and Tomei, not June, Tomei into the United States. Went to Tokyo Auto Salon in '99. Met my now wife at SEMA Show in 1999. She works in the automotive industry. She was at McGuire's, where you spent some time. She was there for 18 years. She still works in the industry, just aftermarket wheel manufacturer. But I've been announcing Formula Drift for 20 years, since 2004. So 23 marks 20 years. And then most recently Nitro Cross. And then I host online content for Hot Wheels, Harley Davidson. Snap-on Tools is a great partner of mine that I've gotten to work with. But I've announced X Games. Kids parties, bat mitzvahs, Gymkhana Grid. So many different events and things, man. And, you know, Goodwood Festival of Speed, Red Bull Crashed Ice, Red Bull Frozen Rush. I don't know, just a bunch of stuff. So I think this is a great progression for us to work back together again and see where this journey goes, not only for us selfishly, but our guests, our listeners, and Electrify as a big widespread net of who's involved. You know, I'd like to get Razor on, you know, like Razor is a brand. Look at like what they're doing, just making a affordable product to get, because like when the Crazy Cart came out, I did product placement for that. I got it in Jeremy McGrath's hands, Bucky Lassik's hands. So I did product placement for that, for the Crazy Cart. And look at where that's going. The guys at Taxi Garage, they're customizing their Crazy Carts, and they're doing ridiculous. They're going so freaking fast. Like, I don't know if you've seen those things, the Taxi Garage customized Crazy Carts.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So these are the things
we'll have
that
all of those big brands on for sure. We'll get access to all those big brands. I know you have contacts. We'll have a lot of our partners on, and it'll be a really fun, exciting conversation to not only just dive into what's happening, but in the EV world, but just dive into the culture and lifestyle behind these brands, behind these people, the stories that they have, the adventures that they live. Like, look, we live in this is a very early industry. And people look at the EV industry like it should be more developed. In the early days when the combustion engine took over the horse and carriage, you want to know how fuel got around? Like, it's the same thing that we have with EV. Like, people complain about not having EV infrastructure. Let me tell you something. When the combustion engines took over a horse and carriage, people had their fuel delivered to them on a milk truck. Okay, that's how people got their fuel, on a milk truck. There were no gas stations. So we're living in like that milk truck. I think we're a little past the milk truck, but we're living in like that time period of like, hey, look, EV infrastructure is rolling out. It's getting more and more ubiquitous, but we still got a long ways to go. And I think understanding, opinion leaders and influencers and new people in the industry's perspective on that will be super interesting for me. But it's also an industry that is just super volatile because you have a lot of companies in the same space. Things are going to wash out. There's going to be consolidation. There's industries that are oversaturated. How are brands differentiating? They don't know how to differentiate. They're getting their lunches eaten. Like, there's a lot of good stories to learn from that I think can benefit people in life and in business. And I think that's what you're going to bring to this table, is bring those really interesting, compelling stories to educate, inform, and entertain people. So, man, I'm really looking forward to having you on this show. I hope you and I can do this again and kind of regroup and get the 3-month check-in on who Jarod is now after having 3 months in the world of EVs, and to kind of get your take on it. I think it should be really interesting too.
I'm excited to go to an event. I have a fairly busy schedule. I don't know how many I'm going to make or whatever, but I think, we do a live show where, this is just all to 1-2 punch it, and how many fists we have flying here between the expo, the show off, the podcast. Keep the dialogue going. This is all just feeding into the Electrify brand as a whole. And again, just that education. And I like to call it edutainment. We're educating and we're entertaining. So edutaining. So that's something that I pride myself as having a lot of fun and vetting people and talking to them. Like I said, I'm just thinking, so I really want to push it out of the box and make not people uncomfortable, for lack of a better term, but challenging the norm. And that's going to be good. So thank you so much, BJ, for having me and your whole team, because you got a stacked team over there, man. It's great to see Electrify grow for these opportunities to exist. And I know you're on the tip of a lot of people's tongues, Electrify as a brand, and you, BJ, as well, with your pedigree of business and the things you've had your fingerprints on.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. We do have a great team. You're probably seeing some names from the past pop into our team, and you're like, hey, I know that guy, I know that gal. It's been great to assemble a team here, and we're just really excited, like I said, to have you on. Looking forward to this next podcast that you're going to have with a special guest, and I'm really excited for our audience who gets to learn another side of the EV world through your voice and your eyes. So we thank you for coming on, and looking forward to listening in.
Yep, thank you so much, BJ. Drift you later, dude.